Hey everybody, it's Tripl-L, and now let's talk some Death March, episode 6. And I'm so excited to talk about this episode of Death March, not really because of the episode content, but mostly because there's a lot of house cleaning to do from the comments from the last video. So, guys, if you are by just an anime viewer, you only watch the anime, there are people in the comments who will point out the things that are missed that I will most likely not cover in the video. They will point out any plot details, so if you want nice trivia, I highly recommend you just read the comments like after. Everyone tends to post right when the video is uploaded, so if you just read it the day after, you'll find a lot of cool comments that you could read through, and they're all very informative. They have better memories than me. On that note, to every other commenter there, I apologize. I'm sorry. You know, when I'm reading your comments, my memories get jogged. Before I read them though, or while I'm making the video, my memories just aren't there. And so when I'm reading through your comment, it's like, oh damn it, I wish I could have remembered to have said that. So my apologies. You know, you guys were pretty much the light novel readers, and it's not looking very well on me that I'm not catching these as well along with you. That said, we're going to go through the comments real quick because there were quite a bit, and I do want to give my thanks to the guys who were getting involved there. So, Tallowolf first. Tallowolf linked in the Crunchyroll poll about which one are the popular anime for the US this season. And that is such a cool map. I have a picture of the map on the screen. What a cool map, man. Crunchyroll. This is what I really enjoy about Crunchyroll, is that as a service, it has a lot of statistics. And statistics are great when you're trying to figure out viewer patterns. So I absolutely adore this. I love it. Thank you so much for putting that out there. And the only other way I could really accentuate that is that a good way I feel of keeping track of how popular a series is how often it's pirated. And for Death March, it's kind of up there when it comes into the piracy aspect. So Kiss Anime has the records for those shows, and if you went on Kiss Anime real quick, you'd see that these are more or less consistent with what the map on Crunchyroll is saying. And on Kiss Anime, Death March is number 3 in the new and the hot category. Anyway, not the point. That one really. Well, the reason popularity matters is because that's what's going to tell us whether or not Death March gets a season 2, or at least a continuation of this season past the 12th episode. And because that's really what we need, that's what we're all rooting for. We need that extra season to really justify why Death March is good. Or to not justify it, to like prove, to have it there, to have it on paper. Guys, this is where you got to stick with it. Anyway, Tallowolf pointed out a few more things that were missing, such as what exactly Arisa did in her kingdom. The reason I don't want to like just say it out yet is just because there's possibility it might be touched upon, but it's looking really unlikely. So yeah, there's just little details like that are being missed, and Tallowolf pointed it out. Then, oh, I hope I can pronounce this right, Care Bear 90 pointed out something that was happening with Lulu, which was specifically about her health. It wasn't addressed in the anime episode, and truthfully, I didn't remember that. I completely forgot about it. When I saw the actual comment though, that's when I realized, oh yeah, right, that was a really critical moment, because I thought, wow, that's pretty cool that Death March would like say it's just like that. So that was an unfortunate thing that was missed. And finally, John Smith, you had the comment that was the most educational for me, because I have not read the light novel volumes. I have read the web novel, and John Smith pointed out that there are some differences as to be expected between web novels and light novels. So, because of that, it puts me at a bit of a disadvantage when it comes to any kind of information that was missed out of the light novel, because the light novel is the one that came last. The light novel's canon supersedes the web novel's canon. And unfortunately, I only have the first light novel volume at this time, so I can't really catch up with what exactly is going on in Light Novel 3. That said, John Smith also had an extra point, and this was coming back to a point that Tallowolf pointed out, the thing that about what Arisa did in her kingdom. I also think that's such a major plot point, it has to be talked about. I think it's going to be coming later, but now that we're moving into the Mia stuff, I can't think about any part oh, what just happened there? Any part that would fit in. And I agree with what John Smith was initially saying. In the comment, he specified that it's a bit too much of an info dump to just put it at the end of the episode. Because of that, we'll just have to kind of see what happens. But what I am thinking of doing is, I like Death March enough that this isn't a problem. What I'm going to do is that before the next episode, before that episode comes out, I'll just quickly reread whatever the episode should be adapting, and then I'll know all the details. Then I'll be able to come into the video and be like, nah man, this is what we missed, this and this, and then I'm not gonna get upshown by the commenters down below. And you know, I say that with all the happiness in my heart. I'm really happy that there's people coming in there and leaving these long comments. So to you guys, thank you so much. You make this really fun. So let's get into the episode. And yeah, let's just 5 minutes in, but we talked about some stuff here, that there are things being left behind. And yeah, let's start this. So I have we're just using my notes. I have notes here. We start off the episode with securing arrangements for the Beast Girl trio, and it just kind of goes from there. That's our premising, and then we head off into the property shopping with Natty and Odd Jobs. So this part is exposition. It's a very quick-paced exposition, and I like it. I really like it for a few little details here. So we go to see the various properties. There's various little like quirks about the various properties. We see the property that's next to the brothel, and at that moment, this is just going back on to things I forget when I'm going into these episodes. I had completely forgotten about Sato's brothel habit until I saw the word brothel and Sato saying it. They're like, oh yeah, man, I wonder if they're gonna do it. I wonder if they're gonna do it. And I'll have a second note about that later on. So yeah, that was great when I saw the brothel. Then we move on into the crime guild, the house that has the crime guild over it. Obviously, anime viewers, that's gonna be relevant at some point. So we see that. Actually, is it gonna be relevant at some point? My memories might already be compromised because I'm thinking something with it happens later. But I might already be, I might have already shot myself in the foot. Whatever, we'll see you next episode. If you guys want to point it down in the comments, go ahead. Moving on, we go through the whole property sequence, and then we have the next setup for the next scene, which is going to be the flea market, and we have Xena being wingman by Natty, and that's adorable and all that. So we move on to the flea market scene. We go through the girls. They have all their new little outfits. They all look very cute and adorable. And then we have a very quick stealth detail thrown in about the violet hair. That being that the violet hair isn't something that people like seeing in this culture. So again, another detail being slipped in there. It's adding to the mystery of Arisa when you're looking at this girl. Like, well, you're on ask girl, why is violet hair so distinct, so bad that it has to be hidden? So we move on from there. We get to see the man that's making the cards, the educational cards. Again, another big plot point. Sato's gonna be doing more stuff with this guy, and now this is again where I'm starting to question my memories. Is this when it's supposed to happen, or is it going to be a scene later on? This is where I tell myself I need to reread the light novel or the web novel. So we have the scene with the card guy, and the most important thing here is, again, we have to keep acknowledging Sato's characterization in regards to the two little girls. When he's buying those cards, again, the distinction here is that he's thinking about their education. Yeah, it's like, it seems like a very simple thing. It seems like a very like small detail. Like, yeah, okay, like he's a good guy. He of course, but there's a difference when you're thinking about learning resources for these people, especially when you have like a battle-centric world or a world that has RPG mechanics. There is a bias among heroes in that world to not really care about educational facilities for children, or not to care about any kind of intellectual growth. So seeing this is nice. It's nice, and depending on which of the genre you have read before, which of the isekais that you've read before, it's refreshing. But this is just a little detail just thrown in there that, again, the girls and their well-being is at Sato's priority list. Like, it's at the top somewhere. Anyway, the card man, I really want to see this guy have a good time, because ultimately the card man's also doing a very nice thing for everyone. Moving on, we go into the earring scene. I have that little note there because I thought it was just funny how Sato said if only Xena would just say what she wanted like Arisa does. And of course, that's just, there's a mild, like, that's a funny observation, and I think, yeah, it'd be great if people just said what they wanted. But we see from Xena in particular, she's a bit conservative in general. it's the way she was raised. It's the culture in this world when it comes to nobility. So that makes sense. It's actually totally consistent with her character, but it was cool to see it. And we see that he buys the earrings for her. Again, another plot element that's going to come back. We move on. We go into the Zen play, the play of the man, the sorcerer, who had a love. You know, in that play though, before we get into the specifics, there were a lot of cute things, like the girls wanting meat and then just falling asleep because they can't keep up with the play. Like, that's adorable. They're kids. And then you have like the lady like smiling at Sato. These are all quality of life little things that are just nice to see, but aren't the most exciting thing if you're a hardcore action viewer. That said, if you're watching Death March, I don't think you're a hardcore action viewer. You shouldn't be. It's again reaffirming the family unit that Sato is creating for these two little girls. And it is heartwarming when you consider how bad their lives were before. Of course, Death March doesn't seem like it's going to be accentuating that, because we kind of have to keep moving. So, you know, it's nice to get it. And the other little small detail we had in there was also Liz as also as adorable as these kids, only in different ways, such as her tail wagging because she's smelling meat. Hey, you can't expect little girls to have a taste or an eye for culture. Anyway, the play itself gives us a lot of information about these characters that were in the play, like Zen and the princess, you know, and it's pretty much like a regular tragedy. You know, you have Zen in love, Zen's being betrayed, Zen going superpower undead mode, then, you know, regular tragedy. All kinds of good stuff. The twist here is that Sato notes that there's a lack of continuity when it comes to character motivations. And this gets expanded upon, thankfully, with the lady that was telling us that nobles came in and pretty much changed it because they weren't feeling it. So, you know, it's just saying like, okay, nobles, yeah, they ultimately say what goes, and when something they don't like it, they're going to make changes. Anyway, the actual story was the girl got separated from her lover by a greedy noble. Like, we all saw the story, so whatever. Now, the story is an interesting element, and the most important thing to take away from that is the distinction that it creates between Arisa and Xena on the literature level, right? Because when we have those two arguing about what happened there, Xena does point out that maybe the princess had some blame in all this because she went against noble custom, pretty much, or the arranged marriage. And then this starts into a conversation about love and what Arisa is ultimately pushing for. It gets heated to some degree. It's not the most heated thing ever, but the distinction here, of course, is to just create the characterization for Xena that she comes from a different background. And when you hear Arisa defending her point, you can tell Arisa's coming in this with a mentality from a cultured world. She's coming in with a mentality from modern Japan. Even then, like, I think she's relatively outspoken, but Arisa in general is an outspoken character. So it's neat to get these little distinctions. Again, these aren't distinctions that are going to make you say, that are going to be striking in your head, right? They're not distinctions that are going to make you say, oh my god, that's a great character, because those aren't subtle distinctions are what flesh out characters, but most people overlook subtle distinctions. So when it comes to this, it's one little factor of the whole picture that is Xena, and it's nice to get this distinction. I do think these distinctions do become a little bit more prominent when it's, I guess, compared to another character. When you have two characters fighting out on what they believe to be correct, that's when you get a better sense for the characters, because now you have a reference point, that being the character that they're fighting. Ultimately, I liked it. I think Arisa has a very impassioned point, and I think Xena's point is the most heavy, for lack of a better word, because her point is tied into the world that Sato and Arisa find themselves in. So I really enjoyed that spot. It's the point that distinguishes Arisa and Xena. They're not just these two love interests. Xena's coming in from a background where she is looking like she knows what the system is. She has her own personal feelings for it, and as Arisa points out, Xena went into the surface because it gave her more freedom, because she doesn't have to be locked in her house otherwise. So very interesting distinction to be thrown in there. I really enjoyed that scene. I think because this is such a subdued episode, I think this is probably the strongest sequence when it came to the characters interacting. I'm moving on to another point. Here we go. What's the next point? Oh, the ants. That's not what I have in the notes. Yeah, the ants. I totally forgot about the whole ant sequence. So, the ants come and they attack the town. what is the point of that scene? Well, it's just to get our action quota for the volume, pretty much, and just see people helping each other out, see the Beastkin girls doing cute things and killing horrible ants, and yeah, everyone just being effective. A pretty simple scene. You just have like Arisa using psychic, the girls using swords, and Sato penny sniping, which was amazing. The fact that the girls helped out and people saw them helping out obviously is going to be important. But what the episode does with this scene is that it spins off into two different segments, that being the segment where we're introduced to the manager of the store. I'm not going to pronounce that name, God help me. And also the segment with the guard. So we spin off into those two segments from that scene. So on that point, let's see, which one did I have first? The elf manager. What the most important thing that we got in that segment was a distinction between elves and forest spirits, that being long ears versus whatever length of ears this guy has, and also the distinction that the hero from the past called them elves mistakenly. Important detail when it comes to piecing together the identity of that hero. Moving on, we're going into the next point. Let's see, blah, 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 blah. Sato pulling merchant tactics on the soldiers, a second scene that was spun off from the ant scene, because they have cores from the monsters. We know about the cores from the dungeon episode, the cores, and this guy wants to get it. Now this one, I do recall that there is some extra subtext being left out because there was a bigger implication when it came to that guard. What we see Sato do is that he's pulling merchant tactics and he's getting receipts and he's getting it certified, he's getting it sealed, because this guy's going to pull some shady stuff. He's going to buy those cores for cheaper than they should, or just requisition them altogether, and then he's going to sell them for like market value or something like that. He's going to pocket extra money, ideally, is what's going to happen. Sato puts a stop to that because having everything certified means he can just bring it up and this guy just loses a job. So, you know, that distinction, they did it enough to say, well, Sato's smart, but they didn't give it enough justice, I think, to say why he has to be smart. So there's a difference between the character being super competent without reason versus the character being competent because these people are shitty. And that's a very big distinction. Like, and this is kind of going back to a point that Talon Wolf was mentioning, is that this adaptation is playing it too safe, and it really comes in when it comes to the follow through of the rationales to why Sato's doing what he's doing. We're missing out on that chunk of the character and also that chunk of the world. But at the same time, this is where you have to start playing the game. It's a light novel adaptation. It's tough to get the balance right. So that was overall, though, I think the second strongest segment for me personally, because I like seeing the merchant stuff. Moving on, we're going into the brothel. Oh, look, we're back. So they did do some of the brothel, but it's not as clear as it should be. Or you know what? Because maybe we're gonna see this more in the future. It's a little bit different, but I'm really happy that it happened. And like, just to make sure that we're all agreed, anime only, is like yes, he did frequent the brothel house. He did frequent the whorehouse. You could see it in the skill menu. It happened. Pillow talk. Come on. Come on. Anyway, this is one of the more interesting aspects of Sato's character in the long run. Again, this is one of those subtle things, but it's one of the things that humanizes Sato. Sato is not like other idealistic male protagonists. He does have his needs, as he would like to put it. So, having that distinction there is just... it's again another refreshing element to the character, but it's one of those subtle elements that ultimately doesn't matter, because it really shouldn't when it comes to the higher ends of the plot. His little preferences for whatever he wants to do at night shouldn't really paint his whole character. It should just make one facet of a multifaceted person. Moving into the next point, Red Helmet and the paramedic title being acquired. We see Sato, he's fighting shadow people, and then we have Red Helmet, and it's like, man, there's a lot of stuff happening in this episode. Anyway, that was a cool point. We now have pretty much premised what the rest of the arc's going to be. It's going to be dealing with this little girl who's named Mia, who we find out when Sato goes over to the odd jobs place. Okay, so I found that whole scene's really funny because, you know, as people are asleep, well, need to break in. Oh, what? Natty just thought that she was going to get lucky? Nope. Sato's here in the downstairs. You know, I found the segment funny. Just again, Sato just doing whatever he wants. But we end off with them helping the Red Helmet, and then Mia's tied up all ominously in that in the bandages, and yeah, Mia's an elf. So, you know, we go through all that. I pretty much just walked you through the entire episode, and it's an issue where when you look at all the events that you go through, you can admire some of the skill and execution, because for a lot of the events, we're not doing full scene transitions. A lot of the events are built from what just happened a few scenes earlier. For instance, the biggest example of this in this episode is going from the ants to the Liza scenes and the Odd Job scenes, right? They both happen directly because of the other. It's a simple cause and effect. It's not a full scene transition. Sato finds out about the man being an elf because he went in to save Naughty. Sato deals with the guard and has to pull his merchant tricks because Liza did really well in the previous battle. So when you look at it, I do admire it from that perspective, because it's a nice flow to the story. We're having like the consistent, this is going to happen because of this, and not this is happening and then this happens. So just a really nice distinction to have here. The other thing is, like, Death March is like a lot of information, and a lot of the information, again, is just so important for later that every point becomes important or worth noting because it has to be noted for later. So it's an interesting, very interesting thing with Death March. You can be sure that the majority of the details that I pointed out in this video, or the majority of the things that I noted in the video for this episode, are because those are going to be points that are going to be popping up later in the future of Death March. And so it just makes for a really long video. Guys, I'm so sorry, it's 21 minutes long. Holy, that's almost the length of the episode. We're going to cut it there. Overall, Death March, yeah, I still love it. And also a note on the art. If you looked at the art for this one, it's not great. We're not going to mention the art. We know that Death March, we know the tier of production that this is. I'm not going to make any points about the art. I already accepted that the art was going to be at this level. We're not going to talk about it anymore beyond that. Anyway, Death March episode 6. Guys, I'm so sorry for such a long video, but if you stuck through, thank you so much. And yeah, till next time, I hope you have a great day. And also, this is just another thing that I wanted to mention, but I forgot. When I start reading the light novel as we're going through the episodes, I'm also going to see if I can compile videos with what did the Death March episode miss, so that people can just have an easy reference to know what they missed if they want to get more into the series. You guys in the comments, I'm going to tell you, you guys are helping me out with that. Like, every time you point out little things, that goes a long way. So yeah, guys, thanks for watching. Till next time, I hope you have a great day.